Will you be asking me questions?
Yeah, but we'll just kind of freeform it a little bit.
Okay.
Again, I can come up with a bunch of dumb questions, but I brought you out here to listen to you. So, but thanks for coming back. Just to get this started, it's March 14th, 2018. My name's Chris Whitman, archivist at Special Collections and Archives at Wright State, and as part of the Dayton Music Project. We following up on our first Story Circle event that we had last November. It's my pleasure to have Steve Carrasas here, and he participated in the Story Circle and agreed to come in to spend a little one-on-one time with us to get a little bit more of his background and some more of his reflections. So thanks for coming in.
Quite welcome,
Steve. And again, we'll just kind of let it rip here, but kind of to get started, just a little bit about your own personal background. You were born here in Dayton?
I was actually born in Utica, New York. Now, there's a story behind that. I feel that I think I told a little bit of the story when I was here the last time, but during World War II, my mother joined WAC. She wanted to serve her country, and she was home on leave from Texas. She worked at a hospital taking care of the wounded. And there was also a band in town performing at the Victory. It was called the USS Helena Survivors Band with Alvina Ray, which was a famous guitar slide player.
Alvina Ray?
Alvina Ray.
Like R-A-Y?
Yeah.
Okay.
I better go back on the story. My father was at Pearl Harbor when it got bombed. He had joined the military before the war broke out, and he was a musician. He went to school in Washington, D.C., got accepted, and the whole band, the band on the ship all stays together. So he was on the USS Honolulu. He survived that, and actually, it's kind of weird. There was a battle of the bands going on at Pearl Harbor. A lot of people don't know that. All the bands were competing for this big trophy. The band to beat was the Arizona band. They were the best, and during all the nights down there, all these bands were performing. My father's band performed, the Honolulu band.
So these were the bands of the different
ships.
Of the different ships,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then, of course, they got bombed at Pearl Harbor, and the Arizona band was lost. All the band members, every band member, they went back to their quarters. My father got transferred with his band to the USS Helena and was in Solomon Islands when it got in a big battle and his ship was sunk. The survivors of the band, there was so many survivors of the band, after the ship was bombed, they put them on a war bond tour. So my father was performing at Victory Theater with Alvina Ray and the survivors of the Helena band. He had some time to kill, so he went down to the USO Club down the road. I think it was on St. Clair Street or somewhere in that area. And my mom just happened to be down there with her girlfriend at the time. And my mom caught his eye, and they carried on a long-distance relationship for a long time.
Really?
That's kind of where I was born, so I guess my mom was a groupie, in short.
Right. So they're meaning this was like right after the war.
Yeah, they got married, and I was born in 48. Unfortunately, my dad passed away from problems from the war and when I was 6 months old. My mother moved back from Utica, New York, back to Dayton, where I grew up. And like I said, I played trombone in high school, grade school. I'd always been interested in music. I was in the church choir. I was,
right.
I was at the choir at school. I always had an interest in music. I always loved drums. Didn't get to play those until 1970.
So your dad, what did he play?
He was a brass. He did trumpet, sousaphone, tuba.
So you Was there any other sort of music history in your family? You always knew about your dad?
My uncle, which was his youngest brother, was also a musician, and he's in the Drum and Bugle Corps Hall of Fame. His name's Solon Carrasas. He got more into the trumpet.
What was the first name again?
Solon Carrasas.
Solon? Okay.
Greek. But, and my grandfather played violin, so a little bit of musical background on my family. But I got to put in another 2 cents worth.
Mm-hmm.
When they were building the Arizona Memorial, by the way, the trophy that all these bands were trying to get during the Battle of the Bands, after the war, they said, hey, the Arizona band was the best band anyway, let's give them the trophy. The trophy now is called the Arizona Trophy. The hall is still there, not too far from Pearl Harbor, where all the bands were performing. They were trying to come up with money to build a Arizona Memorial, and the government would not give them any money. They wanted the states to give them money. Kids were sending in pennies, nickels, and dimes, and whatever they could afford. They were still short. The committee, the Arizona committee, got a call from Colonel Tom Parker. And Colonel Tom says, I have a gentleman that's going to be in Hawaii doing some filming, and he will do a free concert, but every dime has to go towards the Arizona Memorial. And the person came in, he was filming Blue Hawaii, it was Elvis Presley. So Elvis Presley had a lot to do, another musician, with they made enough money to do the memorial. And actually it's weird because Elvis Presley played in the same hall where they had the Battle of the Bands. So it was kind of unique. So
yeah.
I grew up in Dayton. Like I said, I'm a young kid.
Whereabouts did you grow up?
I went to Wilbright High School,
Wilbright.
East End. I went to Residence Park for a little while, and we moved to the East End of town. But I'm working at a car wash as I think I'm 16, 15. Wipeout comes on the radio, and I start playing Wipeout on the window. And a guy says, oh man, are you a drummer? I said, man, I always like to play drums. I do it in the high school band. I'm always messing around. I've always wanted to play drums because, oh, I got a set of drums at the house. We need to start a band. I said, wow, cool, man. Come on over. So go over to his house, got a whole drum set in the basement. And he calls a couple friends up. The guy that Greg Summers was his name. There was Jim Shaw.
Greg Summers.
Greg Summers
Mm-hmm.
was a guitar player. Jim Neff was the rhythm guitar player. At the time, Jim Shaw was the bass player, and Gary Sheckelhoff was the drummer. He ended up being a drummer. Anyway, we started working out some songs that Greg knew, some Beatles songs. This is 1964. And nobody wanted to sing. I go, well, they kept saying, well, you sing, you've got a good voice. I said, I don't want to sing them all. Oh, no, you sing. They didn't want to sing. So
nobody else would do it. Right.
Nobody else wanted to sing. Nobody else wanted to get in front of people. So we got the mic stand back by at the drums. I'm playing drums. 6 weeks later, Greg goes, anyway, your parents will buy you a drum set, because Gary's parents wanted him to take his drum set home. He never showed up at all. I begged my parents. Mom didn't work. Dad worked at a factory. 3 brothers. Okay. So I told Greg, I said, I don't know what to do. I can't find any used drum sets. I can't afford a new set. Parents won't buy me one. He goes, well, you got such a good voice. Why don't you just sing and teach Greg how to play the drums? It's his drums anyway. I said, if that'll work, that'll work. So I ended up...
But you didn't even know how to play drums.
Well, I've always kind of had a knack.
Right.
I always liked them, but I never
Some
got a
people
chance
seem to take to it just naturally. Yeah.
So I ended up teaching him how to play drums, and I became the lead singer. We played YMCA's, teen centers. We played in Brookville. There was a lot of teen centers back then. There was a lot of things for kids to go. There's nowhere for them to go.
How old were you at the time?
I'm thinking 15, 16 years
15,
old.
16. You guys.
I had to walk to band practice, which I lived on Burkhart, and Daybell Theater was kind of a ways up. I had to walk all the way up there just for band practice.
Right, right.
But
Did you have
sometimes I'll get a ride.
Did you have a name for your band?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a name for your band at
Oh,
the time?
the name of that band was called The Outcast.
The Outcast. That was your.
Matter of fact, I have here that I found the first time I played. There was a battle of the bands, Mike and the Mustangs, the Dynamics, and the Outcast at Burkhart Center. 75 cents to get in. We won $8 a piece, which was ungodly. I mean, it was a pretty packed place, and
you're doing business now,
I was washing cars for 75 cents an hour. So how can this be? I'm having a good time and I'm making money. At the time, my hair was greased back, but it was kind of long. And one day, I was actually kind of making fun of the Beatles, and I said, I'm just going to let it go down and just go to school while all these girls are going, oh, so.
They liked it.
Oh, they loved it. My parents hated it. They loved it. So I had to grease it back when I got home, and I had to let it out down when I got to school. But it was a good time in school. I was in choir. I was still playing trombone in my high school band. And then after school, I was doing the band practice. We would play at a lot of teen centers. I remember New Year's Eve playing at the Kettering YMCA, the Lori Center downtown. It seemed like there was a lot more rec centers. I think there was one there by Stivers across the street. There was Burkhart Center, Belmont had one. So there was quite a few places to play. I was in that band for about a year, and Greg set me down with Jim one time, Jim Neff, and said, Steve, we're going to go a different direction. We don't know whether we can use you or not. He says, we don't want to hurt your feelings. You're a good singer, but we want to do soul music. I said, that's fine.
So what kind of music, what kind of songs were you playing?
We were doing a lot of the Beatles, but in '64 there wasn't that much music out by the Beatles, so you had to do some other stuff. I even remember doing I'd walk off the stage and he'd do some instrumentals. Matter of fact, I've got 64. I've got some of the top hits in '64. There's a couple Beatles songs. There's Roy Orbison. But now you've got Dean Martin, Everybody Loves Everybody. You've got Al Hurt, Java. Then A Hard Day's Night, Manfred Mann, Do Wah Diddy.
Right.
Under the Boardwalk. It was a time when things were changing. You had the beach music, the soul music was coming in, and then you had the Beatles. And there was a mixture of folk from Peter, Paul, and Mary. Bob Dylan was coming out. You had the soul music. You had the beach music. And you had the Beatles, the English rock. And there was a big conglomeration of music coming out. In '64, there wasn't quite as much we could choose from. I mean, there was a couple, Please Please Me, Dave Clark 5, Glad All Over, remember that song. And the thing is, some of these bands, when we had the group talk, we talked about this. A lot of these groups were our age.
They were all very young. Yeah.
You know, Carlos Santana's 8 months older than I am. I mean,
and so it was all young people being inspired by
there was a lot of young
music.
people. In '64, there wasn't a whole lot of bands. The Beatles had just kind of came out. We had lost the president. We lost Kennedy. There was a cultural change in civil rights, women's rights, gay rights, and all of a sudden the Beatles come out, and it was like, it's okay to be different. It's okay to be different.
Right.
Being different is okay.
Right.
Often
we don't have to all
I
be
often
in
wonder
step.
what our
And,
society would have been like without the Beatles coming
Mhm.
over. I often wondered that. I
Right.
think they actually changed our complete society.
Mhm. What were before the Beatles? What was the popular music then?
Well, the popular music was like, I would say Roy Orbison was good. The Supremes were good. There was a lot of soul music around.
Mhm.
Martha and the Vandellas, Chiffons.
Okay.
Of course, Elvis was kind of going out, and there was stuff coming in. So I'm in the beginning of all this change in music.
Everything changing, right?
I mean, when you got Louis Armstrong, "Hello Dolly," right up there underneath the Beatles, and it's so
Right.
opposite.
Yeah.
The Beatles just made a big influence. The more I listened to the Beatles and the English music, the more I enjoyed the music. It was not super hard, although some of the chords, the Beatle chords, were a little complicated, but it just had this music that just...
What was so different about it?
Usually your chords are 3-chord progression songs, like a lot of country songs. The Beatles were not like that. Their endings were different. The music was different. They didn't copy anybody. They were all original with their music. It was just a different sound. We had the Vietnam War going on. Like I said, we had lost the President Kennedy. We had the Vietnam War going on. We had a lot of civil rights issues going on with the blacks and the whites and the whole thing. The women's rights were the same way. But these things, I got to watch the change, and I'm glad I was there for the change in people and music. And I just happened to get an early start in '64. Of course, some of the guys got earlier start than that. And anyway, after I got replaced by a really nice black guy, Marvin Smith, and I think her name was Bev. And they had the best harmony of anybody I've ever heard. So the group, the Outcasts, became Marvin, Bev, and the Triumphs.
And the Triumphs.
The Triumphs.
Playing more of a soul.
Yeah, they took more of the soul music.
Yeah.
I went and started another band.
Did they still call themselves the Outcasts, or they spin off?
No, they changed it to
completely?
Marvin, Bev, and the Triumphs.
Were they playing with some of your other friends that you'd started?
Well,
with?
they were the Outcasts. My old group became the Triumphs.
So, okay.
And I actually started another group. It was a time when they think everybody that had long hair was a musician for some reason, but downtown was really thriving. Believe me, it was.
I remember.
thriving.
I remember at the circle they were saying that everyone kind of went down and kind of hung out
Everybody
hang out
hung
on the steps at
downtown.
Courthouse Square and.
Courthouse Square. You had Mayor's Records if you wanted to go down and listen to records and play records and meet people. You had the arcade, McCroy's, the courthouse. Everything was safe. There was no problems. And I'll be darned if every time I didn't go down there, I'd meet some other guy that's got long hair. Of course, they called us beatniks before they called us hippies.
Yeah.
But some were musicians, some weren't musicians. I met John Marshall, my new bass player for my second band downtown. He was a bass player. I said, "You know guitar players?" "Well, I might know a couple." So we just started asking around, and of course we started wearing the hippie clothes and the bell bottoms and the paisley and the Madras shirts that bled. And
So are people lugging their guitars downtown
Yeah,
and,
lugging their
and
guitars
playing
downtown.
on the steps?
the thing about downtown Dayton was it was safe and it was thriving. There was a place called the Alley Door that was like a coffee shop / you could go in there and play folk music. You could go and do your poetry that you wrote. You could
Mhm.
sell your artwork. There was also a church.
Yeah, the Down There.
The Down
I
There.
remember you talking.
Also, there was a church. I can't remember the name of the church, where it was called the Down There. Let's see, there was the Alley Door and the Down There. The Down There, I met musicians down there playing folk music. It was a church that had a big rec center. You could wander in there, and they had refreshments. They had, if you wanted to paint, you could paint. They had people. They had a small stage where I met some folk musicians.
So the church just kind of opened their, like you
It's
keep,
like an open stage, you know.
and you keep coming back to, there were more sort of places for kids to go, and but this was like creative outlets of.
Yes, and I found out that I was artistic in a different way. I was artistic musically. I can't draw a person, but a lot of the musicians, the artists, and the poets all think alike. It's the way we're wired. So we had a lot in common, even though this guy didn't play music. He was a poet, but
you were all artists of one.
We all thought alike, and the more I went downtown, the more people I would meet. I was with this band for a while. This was called the Forbidden Figures. It was, let's see, there was John Marshall, Jim DeBoard. DeBoard. I just saw him the other day. Phil Linville, Michael Voigt, who passed.
What was that last name?
Holvoigt.
The reason I keep asking about these names is that when we transcribe, that's always
Mike Holvoigt.
That gets to be the difficult.
He passed away, unfortunately. I was playing with them. We did 2 or 3 shows. We got in a couple of battles of the bands. I'll go over some of the places we played. But unfortunately, we had a few, we called them the greasers, who didn't like the guys with the long hair. And Jim got punched in the mouth while I was playing, when we were playing at my high school, and we had to take him, his mom had to take him to get stitches put in. So most of the time you got bullied but not slapped or hit, so it was pretty uncommon. I was with that group for probably 8 months. I'm the one that actually got to form the group together, until I went out and heard these kids play. And I was out one night when we were playing, and I heard this young group, and they were 14 years old. And this guitar player, when it came to the lead part, I'm like, oh man, that kid's talented. What a talent. The kid was Ira Stanley, and he was 14. The other guys were about the same age. There was Ira Stanley, Kenny Meare, there was Mike Delaney on drums, and let's see, Kenny Meare rhythm, Ira Stanley lead, Steve Conley was a bass player, Mike Delaney drummer. And I was so impressed with the band. Their music was so good. Even though we all did the same songs, it's the way that it was performed by Ira when it came to the parts.
The guitar?
The guitar. Mm-hmm. He was just talented. And so I asked him if they needed a lead singer, frontman, since I've played in bands before. And I was 18, I think at the time, 17, maybe 18, and they were 14. So that was the group December Children. We were together for a couple of years, one of my favorite bands. We talked about why so many good musicians came from Dayton. I remember us bringing out it the last time. I think because of the Beatle craze, and because everybody and their brother was going out and getting guitars and amps and drums and basses, unlike today where you may have 50 kids playing music, you had 200 kids playing music. Every block, like they said, had a band playing in it. Some bands didn't last very long. Some of the musicians, they would practice guitar for a couple of months, figure, I can't do this, and sell their guitar and amp. But it also brought out the naturals. So if you take a bunch of musicians and all of a sudden this guy's a natural drummer, this guy's a natural bass player, this guy's a natural singer, you're bringing out the best of the musicians too. There was all kinds of places to play. We had the Lori Center downtown. We had the biggest place was Forest Park.
Okay. What was the place downtown called?
Lori Center. Lori, I think Lori, Lori Center.
Okay. Forest Park.
Forest Park was the caverns. You'll hear me call it the She, Popolewski's. There was different names that went on her, but the main name was Forest Park Caverns.
It's funny, since our story circle, talking to other people about different things, and growing up in Dayton. It keeps coming.
That
up.
was the big place. They were having Battle of the Bands. There was GBU Hall. Teen centers seemed like they were popping up all over. The more that the years went by, the more teen centers there were. But we were so fortunate because Forest Park, Ted Nugent was playing there, seemed like every other week. Ted Nugent and the Amboy Dukes. Simon and Garfunkel was performing there. Terry Knight and the Pack, which became Grand Funk Railroad, was performing there. There was a lot of groups that came through Dayton. I remember the early Battle of the Bands. There was a band called, let's see, what was the name of that group? I'll think of it here in a minute. Anyway, it became the McCoys. Rick Z Combo, that's what it was. It was Rick Z Combo, which was Rick Zeringer. He changed his name to Derringer from Union City, Indiana. They became the Rick Z Combo. Then
These names keep popping up.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden it became the McCoys, and they actually recorded Hang On Sleepy when he was 17. So these people, we got to know all these musicians. Ted Nugent, like I said, was there all the time, and Mark Farner, I remember changing clothes in the back room with him at the Blue Moon. I would say...
Why were they all coming to Dayton to play?
Well, a lot of them were from... the Amboy Dukes from Ann Arbor, and Terry Knight and the Pack was from around the same area, and it was close to travel. But on the other hand, there was some groups come through town to perform. I remember Keller and Skating Rink was the Sun Rays, that song Sun, 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 I Live for the Sun. They performed, and I'm like, I'm telling my race guys, go, we're better than they are.
Right.
So it's who you knew, if you got the connections or whatever. But the people making it were just right here with us. I remember the Ohio Players, a little bit of Soul. There was tons of group. We had a lot of backing from DJs. Gene by Golly Berry, Doc Holliday. There was a little, you could go down by where they were doing their station right from the window. I remember going down there with the band one time with a poster going, "Hi, from December Children." The whole band was outside the window while he was talking. "Hey, I got December Children here with me," looking at me, and just get that free publicity.
Yeah.
As time went on, more bands. There were some bands that folded, some that stayed. Of course, you got the good bands fighting for so many jobs. There was a lot of places to play, and all of a sudden it started going out. There was a Sugar Shack in Fairborn. There was a place in Miamisburg to play. We played at Pickwa Skating, 36 Skating Rink. We played at Xenia. We played in New Carlisle. We started spreading out. That was a funny story. I think I told you about the hearse. I had a 50 Chevy coupe that bit the bullet, and so I found a 50 Pontiac hearse. And boy, did that fit our bill. We got all the band equipment in it. All the members could sit in there, and we could all travel together. So I put December Stroller on the sides. But
and everyone knew you were coming, right?
Everybody knew we were coming. The guys with the long hair, and but Max and Joyce Rogers, I think I said this on the other tape, I have to give them more credit. We didn't have a booking agent. Booking agents were kind of far and few between. He had a head shop downtown Dayton, and he decided to book bands. He had a secretary, her name was Penny Garnett, and I want to give her credit because she did all the photo shoots. She got a photographer. She did all the envelopes, the printing, going out getting jobs, booking the bands, doing the contracts.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed in this folder of materials that you sent a lot of stuff like that, of the business cards,